Hello everyone, this is Wit and Sensitivity, and today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics, my greatest passion, one of my greatest passions, and this is languages and language learning, how to approach languages in general. I'm going to talk from a more different perspective than the one you're probably used to. There are many polyglots in the internet right now that you can find talking about how you can learn and acquire a language easier. I'm not really going to talk about this, at least not today. I'm going to talk about the existential questions I ask myself when learning languages and why it's so important for me to always make myself those questions whenever approaching a new language. So, as I said, let me make a small comparison of what maybe I'm used to hearing on the internet regarding language learning and what I prefer to think about it when I personally approach it. So, first of all, there are many people who claim to speak a certain number of languages, 5, even 10 or 15 languages, and they show those skills to the wider audience, right? I don't know if you have come across, you probably have if you're watching this video, come across people who show their skills of a particular language on the internet. And that's great. If you know a certain language at a nice level and you can talk in this language, you can speak in this language, then that's perfect. And I'm happy for you. But there is another aspect to language learning which I find very important. That's why today I'm going to talk about language learning from a more philosophical point of view, a more human point of view, I guess. Because languages are not just something that you translate and something you can use, like a materialistic set of stuff that you can use in order to create meaning in a way, but it's something much deeper, something much more, which contains culture, history, which contains people's understanding of love and hate, strongest emotions. All of those things are contained inside the languages, and being able to go deeper in a language and feel and live through that language, that's what it means for me to be able to speak a language properly. So, what are the three questions, the three existential questions which I ask myself when learning a language? The first existential question is, am I authentic in my language learning? Do I want it? Do I really want it? Or do I do it because it's trendy, because people around me do it? Uh, in general, I try to ask myself this question regarding every single thing that I do. But since we're talking about languages right now, I'm going to reformulate the question in regarding to language learning. I always ask myself if this language that I learn is something that I want, if I'm interested in the culture and in the people. It's not only about the language. When I start learning a new language, I try to understand the cultural background of the people who speak it, to understand maybe the politics of the country, the history, how people have been exactly throughout history, maybe some works of literature, works of art, to be able to get to know the culture. I want to read something to you from a book which I recently found in the library. I'm working on a different project currently, but I came across something which I decided could be very useful to introduce in this video. So, I'm going to read it in Italian since the book is in Italian, but you will see the translation. Alright, so ogni lingua è un universo di emozioni, di sensazioni, di senso, spesso non traducibili o difficilmente traducibili in un'altra. Imparare una lingua quindi non vuol dire arrivare alla capacità di tradurre o di applicare meccanicamente le regole grammaticali e il lessico, sovrapponendoli ad un'altra lingua, ma acquisire la competenza di pensare ed emozionarsi nella nuova lingua appresa. So as you see, that's exactly what I meant. Learning a new language, acquiring it, means actually being able to live this language, to get emotional in this language, to get passionate in this language, to know how to express your passions and emotions through the language. Let me read something else. Il linguaggio si manifesta non solo come possesso di uno strumento meccanico attraverso cui ad un vocabolo nella mia lingua materna sostituisco un vocabolo di un'altra lingua, ma come ciò che fa entrare in gioco il pensiero immediato. Con questa espressione intendo che la comunicazione avviene senza necessariamente passare attraverso il filtro costituito dalla traduzione, ma in modo che il pensiero si formi spontaneamente nella lingua altra, quasi a priori. In questo modo una realtà multilinguistica si trasforma in una realtà interlinguistica, che è per propria necessità intrinseca anche interculturale. So, as you see, learning a new language means developing a different side of your inner world, which lets you also develop this intercultural, not only interlinguistic, but also intercultural understanding of the people whose native language you're trying to learn. So this is something very important to me. Always, whenever learning a language, I have the need to show respect to the people whose language I am learning. And whenever I speak it, I also feel the need to show respect and understanding of the culture, not just use it as a mask of my ego to show that I speak the language. What use does it do if I cannot connect to the people whose language I'm trying to speak? The second existential question, which I make myself when learning languages, has to do a lot with the first one. And it's, how do I do that? How do I approach language learning in the most authentic possible way? And here I'm going to reach out to the definition of this simple word which we use every day, learn, what it means, and also the etymology of it, because it's very interesting to track down how the word learn contains itself the answer to this question. So, according to the Oxford Languages definition, learn means to gain or acquire knowledge of or skill in something by study, experience, or being taught. Regarding language learning, it's not only studying, it's not only experience, it's not only being taught, in which you have to learn the language. So you need to use all of those three, studying, experience, and being taught, in order to maybe acquire the language in a most authentic and professional way, right? And what about the etymology of the word? So here you can see the etymology. The word comes from Middle English, lernen, then Old English, Leornian, Old Frisian, lernia, Old High German, lernen, Middle High German, and German lernen. So all those words originally meant to follow or find the track, to follow, go after. And they are related to the German word Gleis, which also means track. So what does it mean to learn? What is the original meaning of this word? It means to find the track, to find your own path, to find your own way. And that is actually the answer that I have given myself even before I knew this. The etymology, I had no idea that it had to do with finding the track and the path. But I realized that the most authentic way for me to approach language learning is really not have a way. I don't know if that makes any sense, but every single language which I have learned from the 11 languages that I am in process of learning, I have a totally different emotional sensations to them, and they're connected to absolutely different memories. Because some of them I have learned thanks to my family, others I have learned thanks to friends and me having to move to a different country, others I have learned thanks to relationships, others I have learned because of university, and so on and so on. So it's a very different emotional experience that I have with every one of those languages. So it's really finding your own way of how you will approach the different languages that you want to study. And let's move to the third existential question, which I asked myself, and you're going to be surprised, or maybe not, by the answer. The last question, which again is related to the first two because they are all interrelated. As you see, I am just talking about some more philosophical point of viewing languages in general. So the third existential question that I ask myself when approaching language learning is how do I make a change in the world? Like, if I have the skills, if I possess the ability to speak 10, 8, I don't know, 7, 6, whatever, many languages, how do I make a change in the world? That's something I have always asked myself. Because just knowing the languages doesn't give you the capacity to be able to connect to other people's lives and be an active part of their positive change. And that's something that I have really thought about lately. And my answer to this question is that I still don't know. I still don't know the answer to this question. Unfortunately, I do hope that over time, learning, finding my own track will also help be a guidance. Like, I will find my guidance, I will be guided by different things to reach to a conclusion of how I can really help people by speaking their language. Or maybe that's not even the right formulation of the question. Maybe it's not supposed to be how do I help people by speaking their language, like how do I help them by speaking their language, but maybe the question is how do I help people in general. Maybe it doesn't even have to do with language, because I realized over time that I am interested in languages, but I'm even more interested in people. So the question that I ask myself is how do I make a change? And yes, I really do hope that over time I will find out how to do this. But for now, I am on an interesting journey of just finding my way. And I hope that I will be able to share it with you the best I can. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.